Good Monday evening, and welcome to another edition of the Burn Barrel Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Shattuck. Joining me tonight is Alice Shattuck.
Good evening.
Hey, so we were on WTIC today, the Burn Barrel Show.
We were. It was our terrestrial radio debut as the Burn Barrel Podcast.
Let's have more of that. I'm all for that. And you know what else got in there? Is our spot.
Is that even, allowed?
I don't know, but it's it played all over. It played all over Connecticut, so I'm thrilled. That just makes me even more happy. Why not?
That's hilarious. Okay.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. Something has caught my attention, Alice.
Okay.
So we had a huge plan. This is a 3-day weekend. This was the weekend we were going to get our stuff together, right?
We did a little bit.
Right. So we beat our average. We were maybe 11% productive this weekend, which is by far blows our average away.
Baby steps, honey. Baby steps.
Right.
I'll take it.
But
we also got all the kids out this morning into a parade, which was also pretty productive for us too. And they had to be in various uniforms with different pieces and stuff.
Yes. So that's where I want to take us first of all. So by the way, it was the Middlesex Concert Band concert spot that played on WTIC. So John, we'll see who shows up from Connecticut because it absolutely pasted the Hartford market. So a couple of things. Okay, 11% production rate this weekend. That's fine. Mm-hmm. We could get to see Toast. Ran into a great listener of the podcast, Janine.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Janine in Haverhill.
Yes, Janine in Haverhill. It was great to see her. Janine, actually, when I saw you, Janine, in the parking lot near the town annex, I was heading. Me and my youngest son were heading to find his mother, and I was hoping to see you on the way back with Alice, but as she got ahead of us because the police did not arrest us, gave my little son a badge, and so I was playing catch up, and I didn't see you back on that area over there, Janine. But I wanted to introduce you and say hi to Alice, and hopefully we'll get to meet you guys. Janine and her husband are fans of the podcast.
Very cool.
Which is great. And I was taken totally by surprise by meeting her. She said, "Oh my, hi, Tommy, love your podcast," and I said, "Hi." I didn't. We live in a tiny little town that's made for horses, really, and I was great. I'm just thrilled. That was just wonderful. Thanks for saying hi, Janine. We appreciate it. Here's another good thing, Alice. Today is full of good things.
Okay.
Okay? Another good thing. While cleaning, trying to clean some of the incredible clutter, and so not only our lives, and I'm sure your lives too, and you can relate to this, our lives have been effing chaotic since the time we met. I mean,
right.
Really, we met right when I was a producer for WTKK in Boston, which is an FM talker. It was a great station, and we got married months after that, and we had our child, after that in rapid succession.
Right.
And then we
kept having more kids and moving.
And then we moved to. We had to move out of I lived in an apartment in Brighton. It was very much a bachelor pad, and Brighton, Massachusetts. And I had Sky the Greyhound with me, and it was a cluster bleep, and it was craziness. And Alice and I had at the beginning. We had questions about the relationship anyway because I was 37 and she was 24. Was it 37, 23? 23. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was obviously win-win. I get the arm candy and the younger, but we had both thought obviously this is great and fun, and we loved each other and loved hanging out. But that was the first thing. Pretty soon that became an afterthought. That was no longer because we had babies coming in the way, and we got married, and and then we had to suddenly move out. We got into an apartment in Medford, but we had to move because the people, the family,
the landlords lived upstairs and were audibly annoyed by the baby situation.
Exactly. So, which was a total stress, and then we managed to somehow get some kind of government predatory loan to get into the tiniest house in Melrose, and we got there, and we barely got unpacked for there. Then I got fired from my job. Thank God we got in the house. The station flipped, and then from there I got over into the Boston Herald. We're gonna start the Herald Radio in 2013 in April for opening day for the Red Sox. I was ready to go. Then the marathon bombing happened, and that got put off. But I was doing work there, building a station from nothing. I came from radio, but it doesn't mean you know how to build a station, including the board, the electronics, the spots, this, that. So it was just cluster bleep, and then Alice had to work, and we couldn't work, and we couldn't find a daycare, and none was the only one that we could afford was this lady who smoked, and all the kids came home smelling like smoke. But at least she was good and reliable, even though I think there was some amount of fentanyl moving through her apartment. But it's so fine. It's been a cluster bleep, and then that happens, and the Herald gets liquidated. We move, whatever. We moved into this place 4 years ago. Somehow we're not unpacked still. And it's a cluster.
Well, because then we immediately had to move back out again for this lead thing.
Because when we moved in, on the day and the week we moved in, we went out antique shopping and bought a steamer trunk, a very pretty steamer trunk. We're going to use it as the coffee table and to hold blankets and things inside. And the steamer trunk was hot with lead, so one of our kids, or all of them, who knows, whatever, tested hot for lead.
No, nobody was ever high except one kid one time.
Okay.
But in the state of Massachusetts, it doesn't matter if the lead goes away. You have to de-lead your entire house.
So that triggers the whole thing. It's a client. So that was disruption and hugely expensive. The amounts of money that Alice still hasn't told me about, but I know that I've never seen and don't have. Somehow we've packed into loans, etc.
And altogether, we were under construction for
and it was stressful.
a half a year.
Yes, and that sucked too. And then and the kid, it was just total. We didn't know until after it stopped how stressful it was. It really was constant stress. And then COVID happened. By the way, I realize these are very first world problems, and we are blessed and really ultimately spoiled. So I'm not saying. But, we've been going, and it's a cluster event. Then COVID happens in the kids' school, and
this is a lot of ways of saying our house is a mess.
Well, yes. Well, yes, and the house is yes, and it's never not been, well, rarely it's not ever been to the fruition. We haven't been as good as we wanted to, that we promised ourselves we'd be when we moved here, and the house hasn't been.
Right.
It's like we have underachieved. So anyway, it's just been chaotic, and it's very, very busy, and from job to job, and my newspaper job, of course, went south when
COVID happened. Really.
COVID happened, and I became the firer-in-chief of the newspaper, and it was
for less money than you'd been making.
Yeah, it was awful. It was just awful. It was awful. The whole thing, whatever. So then Alice got the job at the warehouse, and then the St. Pauli girl job, and then now a job that's
an adult job, yeah.
Yes, an adult job, more adult than my job in many ways, and so it's just been a cluster event. And so it's tiring, and we try to do things when we can. We are irresponsible because a lot of times on the weekend we want to just have fun and relax and enjoy ourselves too. Like, I know you guys are doing the same thing. It's a balance. So, and of course, because we're stupid, we bring in more things, more dogs and more chickens, because why not just ramp it up? So then I found this, and today, while cleaning, trying to do some of the cleaning for the closet and the podcast, I just want that closet to be something that doesn't make me uncomfortable to look in, because when the Boston Herald liquidated Herald Radio, I got all the equipment essentially, and it's all like industrial radio equipment is here, and it doesn't belong here. I'm getting rid of a lot of it. A lot of it's just shot anyway. So while cleaning out some of the stuff, I found this little note here, Alice.
Okay.
That absolutely made my day.
Okay,
this was in my hand and about to be thrown out.
Okay.
And I'm going to give it to you to read. I believe it's from James. Who is that out there? Who is that right there? Can you give this to Mommy?
I'm not sure that's from James.
I believe it's from James.
A big writer.
From a few years ago.
Oh, you're right. It is from James from a few years ago.
Can you read it?
Dad, thank you for the pumpkin.
No, it doesn't say that. What does it say?
Dad, thank you for the pumpkin.
Right. And I just love that. I thought, my goodness, what a great moment that was. And I remembered seeing it the first time. And can you get that paper back to me, please, Cyril?
Can you give it back to Daddy?
Thank you. Did you find the lollipops?
Thanks for moving the cameras, my friend. Thank you.
You want me to sign this for you?
Yeah, but
The lollipops are in my box downstairs in the kitchen. Sally or James can show you.
but James wanted a Jolly Rancher.
Oh, it's whatever's there. You guys can have whatever's there. Okay? We got to do this.
Oh.
You guys can have all the candy. It's downstairs. It's great. Okay, there's cake in the fridge too. Okay? There you go.
Oh,
Ooh.
there's cake?
Yeah. Okay, so that made me happy. Dad, thank you for the pumpkin. And I think that's great. All right, you know what? There have been this has been an entropy and a rolling cluster of our lives here.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has been fantastic and filled with, we're so freaking blessed. Just think, we have a large-ish house, which we didn't have before. I don't know if this is large. I think it's larger than the house I grew up in. It's not a small house, is it?
No, it's not.
No. And we don't have an acre of land, but there's lots of rolling grass out there, and there's little stone walls. This is very pretty here. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
And this room is great. I love this room. And I just added my F-16, by the way, more stuff. And so, and today was great. Just going down there to, not just meeting Janine, our friend, the listener, but other people I know. And also, this town, when you're walking, and you can actually see into people's houses, or you can see people's houses in their yards, etc. This town is beautiful.
It's really pretty here.
Yeah.
It really, really is.
This is great. We're in the greater Groveland, Newbury-ish area up here. And if you're from down near Boston, where me and Alice grew up,
you've never heard of those.
No, this is a different solar system completely. This is weird. But so one of the other things that I was doing today as I'm cleaning was I went through the box of stuff, including one of the box of things that I saved from the Herald. Not too much stuff we saved from the Herald. Almost everything in the Herald archives were thrown out, just tossed. All that history was gone, and you can talk to the ownership of it if you'd like to know why. And I came upon this, the Boston Herald. It's the 100th anniversary edition. This was printed, that I'm holding here, August 25th, 1946.
Wow.
Yes. So, a couple of things are very interesting. One, almost 90% of it is native advertising for the shops in town, like Shreve, Crump, and Low, using history and the class of the city to native advertise the
Is that what tabloids were shaped like then? That long,
this
tall
still
thing?
is what a tabloid is.
Well, no, but it's squatter now.
Yeah,
The
I
Herald
guess
is.
so. Yeah, yes. I guess it was, yeah. Unless this was a supplemental, I'm not sure. But anyway, Boston is a better place to live. I found this little essay here by the Reverend Dana McLean Greeley, minister of the Arlington Street Church in Boston. He talks about Boston, yada yada. A lot of beauty has been destroyed in Boston. This is 1946. Some of the bigger buildings were just going up there. And he talks about the problems Boston has. And he says, this brings us... Hold on, let me make sure I'm recording here. You don't mind?
I'm recording, so if you're missing anything,
Okay, I'm good.
I'll have it for you.
So he says, this brings us to Boston's more serious problem, which is its political problem. Basically, it cannot be a better place in which to live either until the political power changes hands or until those currently in power become politically mature and possessed of a sense of social responsibility. It avails the city very little in real assets to borrow $15 million here for a new harbor bridge and $25 million there for new docks and $50 million somewhere else for an elevated highway, which was being
A
built then.
disaster.
Right.
But we
While
then spend a bunch more
Right.
money to put underground later.
right for new docks and $50 million somewhere else for an elevated highway, while this money is poured through a political sieve to be dissipated and frittered away, with the citizens closing their eyes to what is going on, which is totally.
Still that way.
Oh, absolutely. This is back when they didn't have everything was ground level. We needed an elevated highway. Now we have a submerged highway, and of course everybody was taking the graft. It is reported reliably that one of the largest business concerns in the country recently tried to acquire an important property in Boston, but upon being asked by a member of the city government for a rake-off in the deal, which is a greasing the palm,
I gotcha.
they packed up its portfolios and decided to settle in California. How often this is repeated is anyone's guess. The corruption of Boston politics is the most serious liability from every point of view, except that the apathy and timidity of the uncorrupt constituent or close second. A close second. Let me try it again and try to read like an adult. The corruption of Boston politics is its most serious liability from every point of view, except that the apathy and the timidity of the uncorrupt constituent a close second. Only when the uncorrupt stop compromising with the corrupt and renew their faith in Boston and do something themselves for its rescue will the tax rate come down, the standard of living go up, beauty be recaptured, and the culture become at home and functional again in the city. It goes on to say more and more, essentially, but it's exactly
The same stuff that's happening
what's
right
happening
now.
right now. We've got to deal with these calcified, corrupt institutions, and we've ceded so much of our life to them that we're not assertive enough. We're not taking control, taking it back, or bringing them to bear. We just let this stuff happen. And it's remarkable. You can't have a school board can't teach your kids about oral sex using a pizza to make it relatable and feel comfortable doing so. They need to feel very uncomfortable doing so. And if anything, I just think that this is like the clarion call to no. It's been tried again and again. If you act in a way to get walked all over, then yes, they will walk over you. All over you. One of the other things I found was interesting was the returning. Actually, let me just. Do you mind if I read it? Just
Go
a
ahead.
piece?
Yeah, read another part.
This is different. This is societal, but you might like this more, Alice. This is just about fashion.
Okay.
I thought this is very interesting and revealing. I really should donate these things to somebody. Phil.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating to me because like I think of these projects and it's funny how nothing changes because like the Green Line extension that was not and then was and then wasn't again, and I don't know what the deal with it is, if they're ever really going to do it or whatever, but like was one of the highest cost per mile of any rail project in the country, even though there's like nothing special about it. It's like higher than ones that they need to like blast through mountains and stuff, and like it's just crazy. Like and that's why we can't have anything nice in this state. I mean, like people were disappointed when we didn't have the Olympics, but like how would that have worked? Honestly, how would Boston have held an Olympics? It just wouldn't even have been possible here. Stuff can't go here. It's not allowed to work in our state for whatever reason. And I do think corrupt politicians are a big part of that.
One part shows here a woman. Oh, tell us, pretty maiden, what, or is it none of our business? And it shows women essentially in lingerie through the ages. Mm-hmm. And this is a fashion part. It says, next to themselves, damsels of any age find styling a matter of form. The winsome lass on the left, from a century ago, seems discreetly horrified at the revelation. She's wearing a whole big hoopy thing. Her crinoline sister. Crinoline, do you know what that is? What is
Yeah.
it?
It's a thing like that the Civil War people wore under dresses that
Okay.
made them big and puffy like that.
Her crinoline sister of 20 years later seems to go for a peekaboo. The 1908 lady makes a few bones about tying it on for size. That's a tight corset. While the svelte young thing of today rates a few whistles. And she's got a two-piece thing on. Sort of.
Not anymore. No whistling at girls anymore. Not
Eternal
nowadays.
feminine mustered out. Mustering out pay for returning GIs is swift and sure. Mustering out dress is the next step and neither so swift nor so sure. For the GI female counterpart in the whack, the waves, and the spars, mustering out complicates still more of the eternal feminine problem of nothing to wear. The newly returning female civilian has the disadvantage over the GI in building up a wardrobe of far and wide range and taste, demand for accessories, etc. So anyway, it goes for, the point of this is it coming home from war, these women had a huge variety of things to wear, but they'd been wearing tan, gray, blue, dressing like
uniforms.
Yes, uniforms. It says these new civilians are permitted. They in the mustering out money. They all got $200 to spend as civilians now.
Oh.
These new civilians are permitted one complete uniform from inside out on separation from service. This means splurging on costume jewelry, shoes, and other accessories that feminine tastes require. In shoes, the returned female veteran eschews the spiked heel, except for fancy dress. I never knew before that feet could be comfortable, is one ex-service diagnosis. A lady's hat is inevitably a touchy topic, and hats are the bête noire of the ex-service women. Of today's headpieces, most of them are terrified. Years of heads sleek in overseas or garrison caps bring floundering in the choice of modern mode. Many compromise on a new service hat facsimile, plus feather or bow.
Huh.
I just thought that was kind of interesting, that your life has been put on hold, overseas, serving, and suddenly rotating back into civilization here, and not knowing how to do it, and like given choices, etc. And I only bring that up because this was at a time where they were dealing, like you read, corruption and graft in the city, etc. And in the total mind bleep that is, 24, 25-year-old servicewomen now coming out and having to restore their roles as, in some cases eligible or very styled members of society, in not knowing how to do it because
I feel there's also like a little bit of a generational thing there, like the same way that everybody writes think pieces about how millennials just don't buy mayonnaise anymore or whatever. Like there was a little bit of like young people returning from the war are just simply terrified of fancy hats. They don't know what to do with them. Like there's a little bit of that, like this new generation not liking hats or whatever. Which is fascinating.
Somebody ran it by an editor, or editors said, all right, guys, we need an angle, there's no doubt, so to what extent, but it's a kind of thing, and of course it's paired right next to advertising for stores,
right.
But so you have that, and so we look at our world right now and say, things are changing, and things are changing, in many ways not for the better, in a lot of ways for the better. I think that I'm seeing that, I think that culturally, the counterattack has begun, which I love. But so just think the cluster event that went on just from the pages of this Herald.
Mm-hmm.
Now, also just remember that just a year before, we were in pitched battle against an evil, huge military force that had destroyed Europe.
Right.
And destroyed millions and millions and millions and millions. And we won't even start on the commies and Stalin and all that stuff. But things are, and that meant that people saw that car coming down where the military attaché was driving to tell somebody that their kids were dead.
Mm-hmm.
Moms would see it and see the car drive past their driveway and then reverse and then hit into their driveway. and tell them that their 19-year-old kid was dead on a beach somewhere, and that was effing reality. That's pretty GD hardcore, considering what we go through now today. We're
Right.
generally and this is today is Memorial Day, so I'm not taking anything away from those people who have died recently in Afghanistan and Iraq and where all. I know that you've had to deal with that as well, but certainly the scale in World War II was huge. In World War II, we were. I mean, we were
Yeah.
throwing cannon fodder was a thing. We were throwing men at the Axis powers.
Well, right. And we were, I mean, honestly, we were one of the countries least impacted in terms of lives lost
Sure.
during World War II, certainly. But it's still the scale of it in terms of our own history was so huge compared to other wars. I mean, really, I would think we probably hadn't seen anything on that scale since like the Civil War, probably. I'm trying to think like for our country in between then, it was probably like a once in a century because the Civil War is the biggest.
Well, of course, yeah.
In U.S. history, so I'm thinking, but that was probably like the biggest since then because I don't think in World War I we didn't lose as many people or anything, but maybe I'm wrong because that's a guess. But anyway, yeah, the scale, I mean, like it didn't leave anybody untouched in society. And it's hard to imagine now a time like that where we had food rations in America and things like that. It's hard to picture that kind of like come together as a country and let's all do this together attitude for that long a period of time happening nowadays with the way our country is and it being so divided. And yeah, it's interesting to like look back on that time, especially now and coming on Memorial Day, and we're really like coming to the end of the World War II generation now at this point. I mean, like there are still people alive who remember World War II, but it's starting to be very few of them nowadays. And,
Right.
you know, in another 20 years, it'll really, I think, be none.
Well, yeah.
So, you know, we're so, I don't know. I said to you today, and like I'm gonna get a little emotional now, so I'm sorry. But like on Memorial Day, my mom used to take us to her dad's house, who was a Navy veteran from the Pacific Theater of the War, and he would like tell us about stuff he'd done and show us pictures and talk to us about it. And of course, I was an idiot and a brat about it, and like thought it was stupid and a waste of
Wayne
time.
Nolan?
Yeah, and everybody else was doing fun stuff like having barbecues and things, and we were sitting in our grandparents' basement looking at black and white pictures, which was not fun. You know, we'd like been invited to somebody's pool party, but we were not. But it's like I regret not paying better attention because now he's gone, and like most of that generation is gone, and it is, you know, even when I was a kid, World War II didn't seem that long ago because I had relatives who were alive who remembered that period in history, and certainly you did. Like your dad was a kid during World War II, right? So like it seemed like relatively recent history, and now like to our kids' generation, I mean, they think like 9/11 is a long time ago, but you know, it's interesting when you sort of you have these like big events like World War II, and it starts to be that like all the people who were alive and remembered them start to be gone, right? And like, and we're gonna come to a time like that with everything, right? Like there's gonna be a time when all the people who were alive to remember 9/11 are gone, right? Like, and
well, it's not just yes. I mean, we will not. I mean, we will have a history archive of World War II, and we will have cinema and reenactments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we've got a big. What we won't have is the raw witnesses who lived it and emote, and who can only deliver their recollections like only somebody who saw abject hell can do.
right.
Somebody who lost their friends in a gruesome, gory way, who was scared, etc., is only they can do. It's going to be like to me. It's I can't get my head into the Battle of Gettysburg and how messed up that must have been. It's just too bronzed and old for me to get my head into what that must have been like.
Although we have a lot, like you said, we have of World War II movies and stuff. There's movies that are, painstakingly recreated of Civil War events. We have a lot of records of them, a lot of descriptions and eyewitness accounts of battles and stuff. So that stuff exists, but like you say, it's just not the same as having first-person accounts from people who were there that you know. And what's weird is I almost feel like nowadays, because our society has such a sort of short attention span and lack of interest in what's going on in the world, just apathy about it, that we're almost doing that in real time. And I remember talking to one of my friends who was in Afghanistan and Iraq, and him saying it's weird because, and this was a few years into the war, right? So we'd been there a while, and he was it's weird because it's you come back and people day to day don't even remember that there's a whole war happening over here, and that there's American kids out here doing this stuff and being in the 130-degree heat in the desert and getting blown up by IEDs and all this stuff. It just it would feel better if it even seemed like people remembered we're there, but it doesn't seem like most people even notice that it's happening. And it's almost like we're not experiencing that war in a unified way in the way that people experienced World War II, because it's only happening to such a select part of the population.
Right. To a select part of the population, and you're right. And so not everybody had to have buy-in, and also nobody cares about Afghanistan. It's a hellhole. It's not relatable to Americans. And Ukraine is a little more relatable. You could say that that's because of race, but it's not really. It's just because culture-wise, they're wearing LeBron t-shirts like we wear LeBron t-shirts, and
right.
Generally, they don't torture the zoo animals in Ukraine like the Taliban had done in Afghanistan. But it is interesting because my kids will never know the feeling of the day 9/11 was, and I was nowhere near, and actually you won't either. I was nowhere near Manhattan. I was not in danger at all. I was working in a hotel. But that day, the day still gives me a slightly nauseous feeling. The whole thing is not my brother and I would never just say, "Hey, let's binge watch a whole bunch of night." We never. That was awful that whole time, and the smoke from the rubble and all that crap and all everything that was awful. It's a nauseating feeling, and you talk about, and we just watched it on TV. We're fat spoiled idiots from Boston who watched it on TV, and it was still bad enough. And the only reason I say that you and I will have different memories is because I was older than you, so I had a little bit more time out in the real world, knowing and seeing people, and that's it. But it'll be different. And also, I just feel like when I was in high school, I was impervious to.
Well,
then again, you're a good person.
And also, I think 9/11 was such a huge event and changed the country in so many ways that it really was inescapable. That was the event that overshadowed all of foreign policy and politics really the whole time I was in high school and even college. It's hard to think about now how much that colored our view of the world and of political necessities, right? the whole sort of, even like the stuff about like the Islamophobia and stuff, and like the religion of peace stuff, and like in general talking about terrorism threats and security theater and the expansion of the surveillance state, and, you know, obviously the foreign wars where, you know, people did go, like people my age that I grew up with fought in those wars. And I mean, the loss of life fortunately wasn't as high as like past American wars, but so nobody I knew died in those wars, but certainly people did. And in the global war on terror, people died, you know, that certainly of your generation and my generation. And it still isn't over. I mean, like there are people really of the next generation, the people that died in Afghanistan last year, who lost their lives evacuating the Kabul airport. You know, they're the next generation after us. So that's, and I think that really, I mean, I know we had the first Gulf War and stuff, but really a lot of that, you know, what we're still doing with all this does go back to 9/11, you know.
Yeah, but the first Gulf War was a cakewalk, really.
Totally
no
different.
disrespect to you guys who fought it, but it was done in a week, and you know that actually set up the expectations for the second Iraq War, which people like
was
me
not
thought
like that.
Yeah, people like me thought it will be done in a month. There'll be a Disneyland there in a year, and we'll all set. They'll be Americans essentially. Yeah. Should we get to a little business, Alice? Do you want to get to a little? Let's just. Do you want to do something else? Let's say.
Sure. No.
I do just want to make sure we hit one thing. You know, it's funny when you said, "Did you hear what happened to Justin Trudeau?" I was like, "Is he dead? Did he get a cocaine overdose? Is he?" But no, he's doing what tyrants do.
We're introducing legislation to implement a national freeze on handgun ownership. What this means is that it will no longer be possible to buy, sell, transfer, or import handguns anywhere in Canada.
You effing tyrant bitch. He really is. He really is. My goodness. Oh, a new pet project. We're taking another thing away from you. Something I find gross. We're going to take away... Even though millions of you enjoy guns in this country, where it's up north, being hunting country, whatever, we're taking it away from you. But
and by the way, it was already pretty difficult to own a gun in Canada, is my understanding.
Right.
Is it was like a pretty complicated process.
But what a thing for him to do.
Right.
We're taking another thing from you.
In other words, we're capping the market for handguns.
Everybody behind him has a mask on. We're capping the market for handguns. I don't know how many people... I know that the handguns aren't a hunting thing, really. But it's just another signal of where their priorities lie. And to make the citizenry less powerful, you've proven that you're meddlesome and troublesome, you truckers. So we're taking your guns away. Taking the fangs out. It's exactly like the American Department of Justice looking at Americans at the Board of Ed meetings. You've proven that you're a nuisance. So we're going to have the feds look at you, especially if you who belong to Mom's Patriots of Connecticut and espousing Second Amendment views. I mean, we need somebody in... F this. This goes back to the thing in Boston as well. Don't be constituents to get walked on and say, "I'm good for being walked on." Yes, government, tell me how more I've upset you. Take more things from me. These people are incompetence. Justin Trudeau is not a private sector genius. He's a apparatchik, progressive, socialist figurehead.
Probably pretty racist.
He's a really good-looking, dumbass racist. That's all he is. That's right.
Yeah. It's disappointing. I mean, I don't know what people in Canada are going to do, frankly, because it doesn't seem to me that it's like really a free country anymore at all between the trucker protest and this stuff. And I don't know what's going to become of Canada or frankly like Australia or any of these countries. I mean, like, look how the lockdowns went in those countries. I can't.
Just the way they talk. I mean, they talk like any Democratic mayor or governor does. Just disdain for you stupid. Oh, you're so not credentialed. All right, should we get to this chat?
Sure. Do we have new chat messages?
We have some that we haven't gotten to that are a couple days old, some that are new.
Oh, okay.
So let us see.
Hey guys, it's Steve from Merrimack.
Hey, Steve.
Just wanted to congratulate you on this week's shows. You guys are killing it, destroying it.
It's last
and,
week. Yeah.
please keep it up. I love you guys, and this
Are you
whole
filing your nails, Steve? What is
Thanks,
happening
Steve.
in the background? Thank you, by the way, for the kind words.
for
What's
you
happening
on
here?
this week's shows.
Listen to
You
this.
guys are killing it, destroying it, and
happening
please keep it up. I love you guys, and this
Rubbing
whole thing is
hands
just
together?
shattering. Thanks.
Yes, I'm sorry to step on you. Actually, really.
He's saying nice stuff about our show.
I know.
Let
And
him
actually,
do
he's
whatever
being emotional
he's
too,
doing.
and I understand, Steve. But I was distracted by that noise. Thank you, Steve. We appreciate it. Last week sucked. It was a tough week, obviously, and to get through. And I appreciate the kind words, Steve. That's good because sometimes we don't. Sometimes I gotta be honest. Sometimes I say to myself, we've done 500 whatever episodes, and I look and I say, wait a second. I'm covering this, and this, and Alice and I usually watch TV at night. And we say, okay, Tucker covered what we covered too. That's good because he's a smart guy. And he's got a smart staff. Now I see that Jerry Callahan's covered the same thing, and Ben Shapiro has, and Michael Knowles has, and Matt Walsh has, and Bongino has, and Glenn Beck has, and
Right.
and Clay Travis has, and Buck Sexton has, and I'm like, wait a second, why am I doing 500 of the same thing everybody else has? Should we just pack it up and be better parents and go attend to the kids? And so sometimes I think about that, but when you
Especially a week like this past week
Right.
where it just was emotionally brutal,
right,
honestly.
but that's why, Steve, thank you for the message because it's good to know that you're getting something out of it because I think that on a personal level, that's where the difference is. It's not really the stuff that we're covering. It's kind of mind melding and sharing a session of trying to work things out with each other here in this room, but with you guys as well. So I appreciate that, Steve. Thank you very much.
Ray Liotta died, 67. Was he having health issues? I don't know. If anybody has ever watched
Apparently, at some point, he was.
Goodfellas, they know Ray Liotta. All right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a few days old, but that's right. Ray Liotta is dead. He's always in every picture seeing like a cool cat. This is 4 days ago.
Oh, hi, Tom and Alice. I almost forgot. I got a simple request. If perhaps Alice could wear her famous Mass Republican Party convention cocktail dress
Ooh.
on an upcoming burn barrel, I'm just curious to see what it would look like. So if you could take care of that, I'd be most appreciative. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
So is that the one from this year?
Well, you said that I wore a tiny cocktail dress.
The one you wanted to wear.
That's what. Well, you said I wore it on the show. You said
Okay,
that.
yeah,
That's why he's asking.
Yeah, that was a good looking dress. Maybe you should wear it. You wore it on. Oh no, wait, that was just the night of the cocktail party. Maybe you should wear it. Believe me, I'm all for it. I am for what you're wearing right now too. You look good.
Thanks. You got this at the Super Bowl for me.
That is correct. That was a great time. I love the Super Bowls. Thank God my friend John flew in to join me. If you guys ever get a chance to get a media pass coverage of the Super Bowl, do it. I know that
I think most people probably already.
It is so fun.
Have that as
the whole village is
it's
a crazy village of all sorts of activities and music and fun and culture and stuff and then like when I was there, I was in Radio Row, and so if my friend John came down and it was just the best. It's a crazy time. It's Disneyland for adults. It's awesome. You don't have to like sports. Doesn't matter.
How's it going?
Good.
Been a while. Hope you're all doing okay, especially you, Alice.
Thank you.
That's my bike.
Good bike riding weather, by the way.
Yeah, I saw Toast on a bike today.
Yes, we did. And I saw Dr. Toast in the parade.
I saw him too. And they and the whole family, actually, her son and daughter were there too.
Oh, I didn't
There's
see
another
them.
daughter, is there not?
There's two daughters.
Two daughters,
and a son.
right.
Mm-hmm.
They're all good looking. The whole family's good looking. See, they're good looking Yankees, Alice.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we need to get in with these people.
Okay.
Yeah, it was nice to see. My bike is made for a really, really fat person. It weighs as much as a Harley Davidson, and I've been pulled over by adults who are concerned about my health while I ride my bike, so I've retired it.
Well, I was thinking I should get a bike too, and like most of our kids have a bike, but we could fill in whoever doesn't, and we should all ride bikes together because then people are probably less likely to stop and ask you if you need help if you're like in a
that's right.
group, right?
That's right, because I'd have my first responders with me.
Hey guys, it's Steve from Merrimack
Hey,
again. I just
Steve.
wanted to say, I have an autistic daughter. She's now 23, but she flourished in the Pentucket school system
Oh,
from the time she was 3 years old. And I always had the feeling that Pentucket really got it. The schools were always super secure. It took a lot to get in. I might be wrong. I don't know what your experience has been, but anyway. Again, love you guys, and keep charging.
thanks, Steve. I appreciate
Thanks,
that.
dude. Yeah,
So,
we liked the schools here until COVID, I would say.
right. Although they're not at that. There's a new superstructure Pentucket that's going to be open in a couple of years, and I assume our kids will be going there. But that's good to know. And say hi to your daughter for us.
Hey, Tom, I was wondering where were they going without ever knowing the way?
Is that song?
Do I know that?
I think. Let me look.
I don't know if I know that. I don't know if I have that. Do you have it?
Is that one of the lyrics?
To what?
Yes, it is. It's from The Way. It's on 92.9 used to play this song all the time. Oh, sorry, there's
That's
an
okay.
ad on this.
Oh, maybe I should play it also.
Yeah, if you Google it, you can find it. But yes, I do remember that song. 92.9 it's one of those. If you're not in the Boston
Oh, I
area,
did like
it's
fastball. It's fastball.
It's be like a jack format station.
Oh yeah. Where was it
And they
going
started
without
writing.
ever knowing? I didn't know that's what that was. Okay. That was cool. My soul was beginning to be mostly dead by then, but I did like that song. Me and my friend Mike used to drive down to Newport, Rhode Island
But that was 1929, like most like jack format stations where
Yeah.
they're like, we play everything. They do not, in fact, play everything. They have actually a pretty limited catalog of songs
Right.
that they play. And if you listen to them all the time, like I used to be a lifeguard, so I would listen to the same radio stations a lot for like long stretches of time. And you would hear the same songs over and over. And 92.9 used to play that all the time.
The fastball was good. They had a ballad on that album too. That was very good. My friend Mike used to like. Who's probably listening right now?
On a lighter note, thank you for that story yesterday about the whiteness of hiking. I had no idea that hiking was steeped in so many amazing, wonderful concepts. Can you imagine if some of the government agencies around preservation and parks and recreation took that and ran with it for some advertising? Are you a person of color who's always wanted to go hiking, but you thought exceptionalism, virility, purity, mountaintops? I'm not so sure that's for me. Well, think again, American. And fill in the ad, and then the conclusion be, hiking, it's not just for whitey. This message paid for by the U.S. Bureau of Land Management and your local ACLU.
Are we in trouble?
I don't know if
don't
we're
know.
in trouble. Leslie is a person of color, though. So
Oh, we're safe then. Okay, very cool.
Hey, Tom and Alice, Mike and Groveland here.
Hey, Mike. Do you know Janine? She's in Groveland too.
no, she's in
One-
Haverhill.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry. But maybe you go to the same market basket.
To touch on the recent mass shootings. It is just actually disgusting how it's politicized the way it is, and no one wants to me. What seems obvious to me, and no one wants to point it out, is all these shooters seem to come from the same type of environment, having the same issues. Nobody wants to point that out. That they're coming from shitty homes, shitty parents,
Damn it.
father's not around, etc. Kid's a bit of an outcast and being bullied at school. School system does nothing about it. there's just a lot of shitty people producing more shitty people, sending them out into the world. When are we going to start addressing that? Anyways, guys, love the show. Keep up the great work.
Thanks, Mike. We appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thank
yeah,
you so
it's
much.
so true. It's so true. Is that, our society left this kid in a house being raised by a drug addict mom and no dad, and maybe the grandparents lived nearby, and he was moving around, apparently, went to different schools. I mean, what a recipe for disaster. And I'm not saying, obviously, every kid that's raised by a single parent ends up being a mass shooter. Obviously not. There's great single parents out there, but it's just like, I don't know, we've talked about it the last few shows, like so much social breakdown, and it's we're creating the problems ourselves, because like you were saying, like even up until what, like the 60s or 70s, people, like kids took guns to school. Like,
Right.
I mean, there were like kids, there were shooting teams at some schools.
Yeah, something has changed. I mean, we know that these are young males. We also know that schizophrenia generally happens in later teenage males, right? We know that young males now, generally starting with my generation, have been medicated,
Right.
with psychosomatic drugs, whatever they're called, psychotropic drugs, whatever they
yeah.
are. And who knows? No, nobody knows. I mean, we're going to look back 100 years from now and say, you gave your kid what, Zach? It's like, we won't know. We don't know that. I mean, this is, the moonshot. It's going to be very deep, Alice. Get ready for it. The moonshot was a moonshot. Mm-hmm. Okay? And it was like spitballing, okay, we launch this thing and chuck it through space, and it should land here, ideally, if the math is right. But not everybody can do that. Not everybody. No, I don't think anybody else has been up there, have they? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think they have.
It's a hard thing to do, because it was weird bank shot 3-pointer from, half court. It was to work. And it was incredible that it worked. But not everything else necessarily is doing what we think it's doing. There are these, like you said, what we've talked about, is a lot of Viagra was not a drug that was developed for
Erectile dysfunction.
Right. It just so happened to be awesome at that. It was developed for something else.
Well, and especially when it comes to the human mind, I think things are a little more complicated than we know about, really, than, even like going to the moon. It's like we understand gravity pretty well. We understand the basic laws of physics pretty well, like Newton's laws and stuff. And we understand engineering pretty well, like building stuff and the pressures that things can undergo and the temperatures that they can withstand. We know stuff like that. That stuff is sort of things that are concrete that you can absolutely like see the effects immediately. And what you need it to do is something that you can test beforehand to make sure it does that. When it comes to the human mind and how something's going to impact it, and how human development works and the development of adulthood in someone's mind, like we don't know much about that stuff. There are a lot of things happening there. There are a lot of little, chemicals and hormones and stuff getting passed around and synapses firing and stuff happening that we just like don't know about. And we screw around with this stuff, but like we're playing with stuff we don't understand at all. On that note, I hope everybody had a good Memorial Day. Hope you found a way to honor the troops and also spend some time with loved ones. The fallen troops, yes. Good point. True. Honor the fallen troops and also spend some time with your loved ones and enjoy the day. It was a hot one for us, and we will see you tomorrow.
C'est la vie.